To pivot means to shift, to rotate, to change everything around completely. Some of you may recognize the term from Excel, and others may think about startups, companies who keep on pivoting their ideas until they find that right business model or that right application that will change the world, and if they are lucky, make them the next unicorns.
So true, Eva-Mia. In this era of digitalization, it's equally important that companies and organizations of all sizes, across all industries, transform how they operate and go to market. Welcome everybody to Kina Teatern, and welcome everyone on stream. This is truly a special morning. We hope to bring you an inspirational event that will give you good ideas and that charge you all to collaborate and to improve the times we all live in. My name is Johannes Anderberg, and I am passionate about driving business change and, of course, to see our partners and customers become cool on our platforms.
And I am Eva-Mia Westergren, and my passion is to tell stories that connect with people's hearts and minds. And today, this is actually the grand finale of a series of Microsoft Pivot events that we have been running this year about digital transformation and about cultural journeys. And here you will meet people who are driving the change, who are leading it. And also, what they have in common is that they are all enabled by technology, because, as we know, technology is really the enabler, but also it's not enough. It is we who are the game changers, us, the people. We are the ones driving the digital transformation.
Indeed so. Let me borrow the words of Arti Segami from H&M, and he is here and he will come onto stage in a few minutes. To Arti and H&M, AI stand not for artificial intelligence, but for amplified intelligence. And that is amplification to the human intelligence in its turn. And in doing so, creating wonders in many ways. For technology to create wonders, to really make a difference, we as people need to act differently. And that is what has happened at Microsoft since Mr. Satya Nadella took over 5 years ago as CEO. In his book, Hit Refresh, he describes the cultural reboot of the company, and that is truly inspiring to be part of. The cultural change within Microsoft has in little time meant new ways of relating, new ways of meeting partners, customers, as well as colleagues. Empathy and curiosity are keys to closer connections that are needed in order to really understand the world outside. As Satya says, it's not about our technology, it is about yours, and how we, in new kinds of collaborations, can contribute to empower you all to be more innovative and to do more good in the world. And so, to manifest that idea, that thought right here on stage, we will collaborate musically with the well-known performing DJ, Andreas Fernando.
Volvo Group have taken a different approach to digital transformation. They have understood that to succeed, people and culture must be put at the center. And here today, I'm very pleased to welcome from Volvo Group, Hillebi Pilblad Rafidashti. Welcome on stage. Hello, Hillebi. Welcome to this morning with us here.
Thanks for having me.
So I have a bunch of questions for you, but I will start with the most important one. What is it that you're doing at Volvo Group?
Well, this digital transformation is both in the industry and the company. We see a lot of opportunities, fantastic opportunities at Volvo Group, and our CEO, Martin Lundstedt, has been talking for a while about finding the balance, about perform and transform. Performing in our traditional business, but also accelerating, the speed towards our transformation, these fantastic new market dynamics we are seeing, all the new technology, and digitalization at the center of that. So, but we're also aware that direction and vision cannot stay at the top. And it is when we involve the whole company, all the employees in the company, that we really get that change going. So our transformation is very centered around people, our people, and really giving our employees the prerequisites and to get that change going.
And what is your role in this change?
Well, I work for group strategy, as you said, and for us, what we think is really important is once again the involvement, but also really making sure that change is implemented. So we work very much with middle management, and we use different kind of involvement techniques. For example, it could be a workshop in just getting out the new thoughts and ideas and taking the temperature. We use business simulations, for example, to really get them to have a feel of what the new strategy is all about. And we, really focusing on cross-functionality to get people to really work in many functions and in the whole value chain. That's important for us. Another example is that we support important key strategic programs like Designed Around Me. That is a program that basically focuses on the everyday life of an employee. And it's a collaboration between Group IT, Group HR, Communications, based very much on an intelligent digital workplace. And for us, that's the rolling out of Microsoft 365. So, really giving people not just the technologies and the prerequisites for change, but involving them once again.
So why are people so important in your strategy?
We have a saying at Group Strategy that is, people hate change. People really hate change. People really, really hate change. Yeah, but when you think about that quote, it really isn't true. I think the smartphone that every one of us have today is a good example of that. We actually embrace change, when we know what it can do for us. So I think what people do not like is not being involved in creating that change and creating that momentum that you need to accelerate transformation. So I think that's why people are really the center of our transformation, to really get that creativity going. Where are the new ideas? That's what innovation is really about not just the technologies and the prerequisites, but you have to get that buzz going in the organization. Yeah.
So get the buzz going and get everybody on board.
Yeah.
What are you learning so far?
I think two things stand out for us. The one is, I think as an organization, we at Volvo Group, we really get that what got us here, now, what has made us successful, will not just that, make us successful going ahead. I think we get that now. What is really starting to hit us now is the pace of that change and the realization that we really have to find new ways to create that momentum and that acceleration that we're talking about. Yeah, and that means, of course, working more together and things like that. The other point is actually a painful lesson, I think, for an organization like ours, a very proud and passionate organization. And we've always been very innovative, really. And that lesson is that we can't do everything alone. It's a tough lesson for us, and it's actually both a lesson internally, as in working together cross-functionally and across the value chain and in several functions, but even externally, making more partners and collaborating more and becoming a better partner ourselves. So it's really a trust journey. I think it's an incredible trust journey that we have embarked, both internally and externally. So exciting times.
Exciting times. And you mentioned partnerships, how important they are. And,
Yes.
and I know that Microsoft and Volvo Group do have a collaboration.
Oh, for a long
going.
time.
So how would you describe that?
Well, Microsoft for us today is both a strategic partner and an operative partner. So we're in the nitty-gritties together, but we're also growing as strategic partners. We work very much side by side as if we were, colleagues in the same company and in many projects. And for example, last year, a few of my colleagues that are here today, we went to Redmond, to your headquarters in November last year, because we realized that this is a journey that we're on together, the transformative journey, and perhaps Microsoft has, of course, come a bit further in their journey. So we wanted to learn from Microsoft. It was a group led by Sue Bevington from Microsoft, really about the journey, about the pillars of that transformation, about the challenges, about the real challenges, and what did you do when that happened, and what did you do when that happened. And we kept the technologies out of the way. We really talked about the change transformation and the journey that Microsoft had. So that was really interesting. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I think that a lot of people here who have listened to you are very inspired now, myself included. Do you have a piece of advice that you could share with people who want to do something similar?
Yeah, well, I would go back to the beginning about involving people in the co-creation in order to really create that creativity that is needed. Back to the message of, it's great with direction, and it's good, to take to really understand the direction and the vision of the leadership, but to really find those ways to implement change and involvement in the organization, and to include really everyone in the organization, whether it's a factory worker or a white-collar worker or somebody who's serving the customer, to find ways to include people in the organization is what I would leave.
That's a great piece of advice. So including everybody, helping people to go from hating change to loving change. That is will be the closing remark. So thank you so much for coming here.
Thanks so
and
much,
a big round of applause for Hillevi. So this is a great example of digital transformation in a commercial sector. But of course, a lot of digital transformation is also happening in the public sector, including the education system. At Hjorthagens skola, teachers are using technology to help their students to adapt to their individual needs. Let's take a look at what they're doing.
Framtidens klassrum på Hjorthagens skola består av olika lärmiljöer, olika zoner för att stimulera eleverna på bästa sätt. När jag började som lärare så hade man ju samma undervisning till alla elever. Där fick man kanske en uppgift och så skulle alla göra lika. Idag så anpassar vi mer klassrummen och innehållet utifrån varje elevs behov. Men en lektion skulle kunna se ut som så att jag har en genomgång för den stora gruppen. Efter det kanske det är några elever som behöver ha något förtydligande. Då kan vi förflytta oss till en annan miljö. Vi har också möjlighet att samarbeta vid våra runda bord. Det kan också vara någon som behöver jobba mer ostört. Vi ser att det blir lugnare. De arbetar mer koncentrerat under längre perioder. Tagit hjälp av olika Microsoft-verktyg för att skapa den bästa lärmiljön för våra elever.
As a parent, this really hits home for me. I think it's fantastic when schools are using tech to really adapt to the individual needs of the students, to help them to be successful and to feel happier at school.
Now, picture this. It's soon Kristi Himmelfärds weekend, and I believe that many of you are going to your summer houses, maybe even opening it up for the season, right? And owning a house is far from carefree. The roof is getting old, there's a leakage in the basement, when was the last time the previous owners drained? Is that a rat? No, it's a bug. And the scary one as well. It's crawling around. Will this become a problem? Not anymore. Yeah, you know this. At Microsoft, we don't really like bugs. But in this particular case, yeah. In this case, yeah, thank you, so. But in this case, it's actually so, it can turn out to be a friendly one, right? This is the result of a smart team. The leadership team at Anticimex, they're thrilled about driving change through data-driven services. And what we saw in this case is that in real time, you get the suggestions you need in order to how to deal with that bug. You can ask Anticimex, you can just send that image to a representative, that AI-identified image to a representative. And then they can schedule an Anticimex visit, and that's truly amazing in itself. Our excellent partner, Avanade, helps Anticimex to develop these world-class applications and services. And hopefully they will bring you insights that support you in taking more care and proactive actions for your home. Not only to let you have a carefree home, but also over time to increase and improve its value. And yeah, of course, then no more bugs.
Wow, I feel that I really need this app from Anticimex already this summer. Another Swedish company who are using innovation like artificial intelligence and eye tracking is Lexplore. They have developed a technology that can help detect reading disabilities among young children. And detecting this, if you do this manually, it can be very time-consuming. But by using this technology, it can be done much, much quicker. And I want us to take a look at the video of showing what's going on.
I didn't want to learn until my whole class was reading, and I was the only one that didn't want to read. So then I was like, can I learn to read?
Reading plays a decisive role in our modern society. It impacts performance at school, participation, and ultimately self-esteem. It's also something that many children struggle with. Based on many years of research, Lexplore's method uses eye tracking and artificial intelligence to analyze reading ability in large groups of children, grades 1 through 4. Your school can free up time to help students improve their school performance and ensure that reading difficulties are detected in time. It can also be used when allocating resources and monitoring progress. Most important of all, however, is that it helps you help your students who are struggling with reading. One child at a time is asked to read 2 short passages on a screen. An eye tracker records the child's eye movements, and the data is analyzed with artificial intelligence. The eye movement pattern reflects the brain's reading process, which means the method can assess the child's reading ability and provide results on 5 different levels.
What we used to do, it was just a lot more time consuming. Here, I'm able to actually focus more on my student and watch them read, and as opposed to worrying about the timer and jotting my notes down. Here, I can definitely focus more my attention on the student, which was really nice.
This feels different than the test that I take at school because it's shorter and easier.
Read more at lexplore.com.
Just imagine how many kids could be helped by this technology. And teachers, they can use it to help all their students to become better readers. In retail, change seems to be happening faster than perhaps anywhere else. I've been a customer with H&M my whole life, and I'm amazed of how they seem to stay current and keep evolving as a company. I know that artificial intelligence and customer insights are key in their digital strategy. Please join me in welcoming on stage Arti Seigami from H&M Group. Welcome, Arti.
$900 million, actually more than 900 million transactions occurred last year on H&M Group. This is a huge amount of data, a massive amount of fuel to our AI engines that my teams are building at H&M. I can actually stand here talking all day about all the cool stuff my colleagues are doing, all these buzzwords and all the crazy stuff and ideas that's been brought up on a daily basis. But I'm not going to talk about that at all. Today I'm here to talk about how we can contribute to ensure that we have a sustainable industry. And foremost, how we can ensure we have a happy planet. The industry has long time been about taking, making, using, and wasting. But we see a shift in that industry. We're going from a linear industry to actually a circular business model. And in this business model, AI can help a lot. It can empower us, make us doing right decision making, be more precise, and ensuring that we're reducing the waste. And I was at the conference a couple of years ago at MIT, very prestigious place with all these smart people. And somebody asked me in the audience, or actually a couple of people asked me, how do you pick your AI cases? How do you what are your AI goals at H&M? I said, well, we don't have any AI goals. We don't have any AI use cases. Well, we have our business goals. We have sustainability goals. And those are the ones that are dictating what we are doing to ensure that we are doing right by ourselves, by our customers, by our planet. It's imperative to look at it in that way because, honestly, AI, artificial intelligence, doesn't really exist. We don't have a cognitive thinking machine as yet. Maybe there are people doing things in certain laboratory, but what we have today is mathematical models applied of huge amount of data with very, very fast computers. And what that makes is that it empowers people that already have a lot of knowing to be even more precise in their decision making. That is why we at H&M don't talk about artificial intelligence for the acronym of AI. We actually talk about amplified intelligence. We know our business. We've been doing it for 70 years. But it's been more complicated, and the world is more complicated. So we can empower our existing knowledge with these tools. We're empowering our existing knowledge. That is very important to have with you, because this is what it is about, empowerment. So what are we doing with this empowerment? What we're trying to do is the clicker should work. I have a problem with my clicker. AI tool needs here. So what are we doing with this empowerment? What we want to do with AI is we want to utilize the power of AI to align the supply with demand, ensuring that we're actually not pushing things out, that we're utilizing pull model instead. It's a very important part of the whole industry to see how we can make sure that we do right amount of garments and we produce right amount of products and we transport them to the right place, to the right customer at the right time. And this is very much about making sharper decision making. Looking at this industry and the circularity, could someone please give me, there it is. So let's look at this circular business model, and let's start with the design process. So the design process, there are lots of data that comes into the mind of a designer. There are influencers, they get influenced by other people, they have ideas popping up. And we start saying, can we look at that as a specific area, and how can we empower our existing design process? So we had an idea together with the design team that we can utilize the sources that they're using today and trying to quantify that into some sort of a data to find these anomalies. Because a trend is an anomaly, something that happens. It could be a long-term trend, or it could be a short-term trend. It's a spike or a long-term curve. The cool thing was that when we were looking at this model, so here it is, we saw these curves for one product, actually product area. The first green one is the influencer curve, and it could be us ourselves that are influencing the market by putting something new there, or it could be other influences around ourselves. The second curve is the mass market one. So when the influencers are dropping down, usually the mass market starting taking off. I was showing this to the designer for that specific product, and she said, oh my God, if I had this tool back then, I said, what would you do with it? She said, the problem was that when we're sitting at that intersection between the mass market and the influencer, she saw that her gut feeling was saying that, the product is not taking off. This will go down. However, her buyers, the controllers, they were seeing the red curves taking off. Our production companies, they're saying, everybody's buying this, you should buy this as well. So we bought. We bought a lot. But when the stuff hit the market, we were on the way down. This would have empowered her to be able to withstand these pressure from the controlling people who has statistics that help. But now she could have AI and empowerment that could predict something that will happen soon because her gut feeling was saying that already. It's this combination of man and machine, human and data and gut feeling that we're looking with amplified intelligence. Going further in this process, of course, we have the manufacturing. In the manufacturing process, you want to know how many pieces, if you have a design that you know this will take off, how many pieces are you going to buy? The quantification is extremely mathematical process because you need to have all these different parameters and variables coming in, and it's really hard. It takes a very long time to do correct calculation, and still we have done a lot of wrong there. We see in certain areas we bought too much or too few. So looking at the quantification process, we saw that we can actually by ensuring the right amount of pieces are bought, we have seen that we can impact the carbon dioxide emission with almost 10% on those prototypes and pilots that we have run. What if we could do that on the whole entire products that we have? 10%. What if the whole industry could do that on their product development? 10%. That's a lot of carbon dioxide emission that we would like to try to avoid. Of course, after production, you get the stuff to the markets, you want to sell it. But how do you sell it? Where do you bring it? Knowing that you put the stuff in the right market, in the right place, in the right store, in the right country is an imperative part of the sales process. Because over-transportation, putting it in the wrong place, putting it in the wrong warehouse, this is all a lot of resources utilized, which is totally unnecessary if we knew from the beginning where to put the stuff. We realized that even here is an important part, and not only because you can produce the right amount, but if you put them in the wrong country, then you have the transports, you have the warehousing, there's so much energy used in a wrong way if we could be more correct and more precise in our decision making. And we have seen that actually both in our pilots and tests and POCs, but also in reality, because we're also getting closer to our customers. Many of you are maybe from Sweden and Stockholm. You maybe even have visited our store in Karlaplan. That was one of our first attempts, and we have now doing a lot of these around the world, where we're actually utilizing the data and the customers that are living around that area to be more precise to what to deliver in that specific stores. Previously, we took lots of averages. We start looking at, oh, we have this mall of this size, 1, 2, 3, of a store of a size A, B, C, and that was it. But now we have to de-average things. We have to go deeper in the data to make the right decision making. Looking at Karlaplan, we start looking at the customers actually living in that area. What are they buying? How can we defy our old truth? How can we defy our old way of working, these averages? How can we defy how we break concepts in a different way? looking at how they're buying online and offline and combining them and putting the right product in those stores. And we saw an effect, of course, in the combination with the touch and feel of the store itself. Again, it's data and human, it's machine and human. Last part, of course, is usage. This is a very tough area. How do you work with usage? Of course, you can do things like, you can look at things like, wardrobe management. How can we help our customers to know more about their wardrobe? Since we do know a lot of data about their wardrobe, how can we help them do not buy things that they already have or buy the right stuff? But also can be utilized in the recycling process, where you can utilizing process like image recognition and AI to ensuring that we can actually do a right waste management. These are stuff that we haven't really touched upon yet. We're working on some prototypes and pilots, but it's really tough because nothing that you can do always on your own. Sustainability is very much about a common work together with other people around the world, other industry, other competitors, and everybody else, because we're together in this thing about saving our planet. It's our planet. It has nothing to do with us as a company. It has to do with us as humans. But looking at the AI and all this cool stuff that we're working on, of course, there's a flip side to it. We talk a lot now about AI for good, but we also look a lot about do not do harm. And that's a very tricky part. And we've been sticking our neck and saying, hey, we want to work with this. This is important because, GDPR, all that, this is only hygiene factor. We need to have the trust of our customer. I'm a customer. My kids are customers. Of course, I'm worried about the data. What is used? Are we biased in our data? As I said previously, there are no cognitive machines as yet in our AI. This is only math, which makes things very binary. There are finite amount of rules in the world, and there are infinite amount of things that could happen to a person. What makes sure that you do right by your choices is your common sense. And that's the cognitive thinking. So there's lots of bias in the data, and the data could be doing wrong stuff, pushing wrong things to wrong people, being exclusive instead of inclusive, not being diverse enough. These are a very important part of their work to look at. We actually have appointed a person who's responsible of AI policy at our company. We're looking at how AI is affecting the ethics. We are working together with EU, with other commissions, with industry in ethical AI. Actually, on this Friday, I'm going to be in Geneva talking with other industries just about AI for good at the AI for Good Summit. It's important to look at that area. We have not solved anything yet, but we want to do that. We're going out with our colleagues, our competitors, and everybody in the industry say, hey, let's look at this area because it is imperative. If we want to save our planet, we also need to save our people, ensuring that the data is used in a good way. So, thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Artie, so much. And this was, of course, as we knew, an amazing story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now, please help me and give a warm applause, a welcome to the General Manager of Microsoft Sweden, Hélène Barnekow.
Good morning, everybody. What an incredible stage and an incredible audience to walk straight into. I'm so happy that you're all here today. I hope you had a great morning meeting some of my colleagues, some of our customers and the thought leaders here, and that you got some really nice stories about innovation and change that inspired you. We obviously have much more to come during the day. I joined Microsoft 5 months ago here to head up the operations in Sweden. And when I did that, I also joined the most exciting change journey that I think there is anywhere in the world in any corporation. And that change journey started 5 years ago when Satya Nadella took over as CEO for Microsoft at the time. And he started what he calls himself a soul-searching journey. So very much this is based upon actually the culture and what Microsoft wants to be for the future and for the world, actually. Now, the deeper I get into Microsoft and the more I get to know, the more excited I actually get about the match there is between Sweden as a country, a nation, and that journey that Microsoft is on. It really fascinates me. And I think it's pivoting around a few things. One of them is pivoting around tech intensity. Because Sweden is clearly a nation of technology and innovation and has been so for such a long time. We have companies who have innovated in this country for more than 150 years, and we want them to continue to do that. And of course, that's a strength of Microsoft. The second part, though, it's something which is a bit more new to Sweden. We have a very, very vibrant startup community here. And that has effects on the whole society, not just the startups. From there comes unicorns. From there comes new collaborations, new ecosystems, new investments, new talent pools. So really important for us in Sweden as a society. And then not everything is about tech. And I think one thing that is really important, where the values of Microsoft meets Sweden very much, is about having progressive leaders. Leaders who actually drive genuinely and authentically towards diversity, inclusion, sustainability, and accessibility. Really core values to Microsoft's strategy, and I think something that we in Sweden actually really take to heart. I think we in Sweden have two superpowers that we combine really well, and that's innovation and collaboration. And when you combine those two, I think that's when you can really harness the power of digitalization, because then you get the fundamentals of building and thriving in new ecosystems. And that's what this is all about. It's not about innovation in isolation, it's innovation in collaboration. And that I think we can really leverage here in Sweden. And when I look around here, we have 1,200 people here today in Kina Teatern. It's absolutely packed, and we have people online. And what I actually see is a very vibrant, potential ecosystem at least. We have such a diversity of people in here. We have startups, we have developers, we have established companies, media, academia, public sector, thought leaders of Sweden, partners from all different parts in our business and in our remit. And we have some very, very long-term friends in here, and we have some new friends in here. And I hope you also find the opportunity today to make some new friends and reconnect with existing friends to keep building those partnerships. As part of that journey towards innovation in ecosystems, Microsoft Sweden is also taking the next step of the journey, I would say. So after summer, we will make the big move to leave Akalla after 28 great years in Akalla and move to Urban Escape at the heart of Stockholm and getting closer to where many of you actually are. And we're doing that both with the innovation side, but also with the ambition that Microsoft wants to contribute more to society, to Sweden, and to that bigger ecosystem of Sweden. So we're really excited about that. Now, I know that you're really excited about actually the speaker to come more than meeting me on stage today. So we will not hold you in suspense for too much longer. But we are, of course, extremely pleased that we get to have Satya Nadella here today. Satya has been CEO for 5 years, and this is his first visit to Stockholm since he took on that position as CEO. And you are the second audience that he's meeting. He had one short meeting this morning, but you are really his first prime audience, and I know you're really excited about it. And I know it's the man who doesn't really need any introduction. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome up on stage the Chief Executive Officer of Microsoft, Mr. Satya Nadella. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Helena, for your welcome, and it's fantastic to be here in Sweden, in Stockholm, to talk about technology, but more importantly, the impact that all of you are having with technology in the broader economy and the broader society in Sweden and elsewhere. When you think about the age we live in, and we try to characterize the opportunity, I think it's very clear. Computing is getting embedded in the world, and as computing gets embedded in every place, whether it's in our homes, whether it's in the offices, whether it's in our factories, stadiums, computing is transforming every industry, whether it's oil and gas and retail, agriculture or financial services. And of course, computing is also getting embedded in everything, whether it is cars, which are data centers on wheels, refrigerators, surgical tools, or even coffee machines. That's the opportunity that what we describe as this intelligent cloud and intelligent era is making possible all around us. In fact, one of the things that I've come to realize is it's not just the technology that gets created, but it's really the defining thing in this age is going to be the technology that each of you build. And in particular, what I describe as tech intensity. In a world where every business, in every sector of the economy is going to be a software business, the question really is, how intense is your digital technology? And when we talk about tech intensity, there are two key parts, or three key parts to that. One is, are you able to adopt the latest and greatest technology so that you're not recreating the wheel? Because it's very important for you to get the best bootstrap to create your technology. That means you want access to world-class technology. And then you want to build your own digital capability, your own digital IP on top of this world-class technology, right? So that's sort of the second part. And then, of course, trust is paramount. Trust that people like us who are in the tech industry and platform creators have to first guarantee. But trust is much broader than that. In a world where every financial institution, every retail company, every automotive company, every healthcare company is a tech company, guess what? Every one of the ecosystems they build also will need to have trust. So that's really how we think about tech intensity. And that's what is driving Microsoft. Microsoft's mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more in this tech-intense world. When we got started in our journey in 1975, when Paul and Bill started Microsoft, the original product they created was the basic interpreter for the Altair. A lot has changed since 1975. But what has not changed is that vision of building these platforms and tools so that others can build platforms and tools of their own. We build technology so that others can build more technology. In fact, I also sort of describe our mission as it's not about making any one of our partners dependent on us. In fact, our entire mission is to help that retail customer, that healthcare customer, the automotive customer, to be more independent using our technology in building their own digital capability. That is the entirety of our mission. And so to do that, we are building out that core platform capabilities, starting with the infrastructure around compute at the bottom, business process layer with Dynamics 365 and Power Platform, as well as Microsoft 365 for communication and collaboration, right? That's really the bootstrap that we want to provide so that you can build your own business, your own digital ecosystem, your own digital platform. That's in the entirety of what we are all up to. So what I thought I'll do is just unpack this by layer. So I'll start at the very bottom, which is the compute layer or Microsoft Azure. Now, the fascinating thing about Azure is we're building it out like a world's computer, which has 54 regions worldwide. We have compliance with 90+ standards all around the world. I mean, if you think about it, when you try to operate across the world, across regulated industries with legitimate data sovereignty needs, we are trying to bring down the barriers for any one of you who's building out your own digital ecosystem to be able to access the world's economy and customers and consumers using these new rails of digital compute. Now, we've also got the most open approach to this. For example, Linux and Windows is first class. .NET and Java is first class. Every layer, whether it's in the database layer or in the runtime layer or in the infrastructure layer, we have sort of made sure that we build to accommodate for what is a real heterogeneous world. And one of the things that I'm really excited about today is that announcement around the data centers in Sweden. So we're really opening up 2 new data centers in Sweden and creating a new region for Azure in Sweden, which is obviously very exciting. But the most exciting thing to me is the sustainability aspects of it. We are going to be 100% renewable energy on this data center region, but also zero waste operations. So really setting the standard for what it means to build a next-generation data center architecture starting right here in Sweden, and it's going to really propagate throughout our data center footprint. And we're very, very excited to, in fact, collaborate with Vattenfall on making sure that we build one of the most leading data centers right here in this region to really foster the innovation coming out of this region. So exciting news for us. Now, yeah. You know, one of the things for me around the cloud has always been to think about distributed computing, not just as something that happens in the cloud, but as something that spreads across the cloud to the edge. We've always conceived of Azure as being that distributed computing fabric where we have Azure and all of those regions, including the region in Sweden, but as well as extending to the edge with Azure Stack, Azure Databox Edge, to Azure IoT. Even HoloLens is a quintessential Azure Edge device or Azure Kinect. But the most interesting thing is what we've recently done with Azure Sphere, right, which is 9 billion microcontrollers are shipped every year. And now you have the ability to take any one of those microcontroller units and make it an Azure compute node in terms of Azure Sphere. So that's really the architecture, the idea of being able to build your applications and rely on the consistency, whether it's identity, management, security, or application infrastructure across the cloud and the edge is one of the true hybrid capabilities that differentiates what we're doing so that you can build your own IP and rely on it. Now, one of the things that we're also doing on top of this is building out a complete tool chain. Because we are obsessed, is the right word, or about excellence around productivity, around development. Because to us, in fact, the very origin of our company was as a tools company. So as you can imagine, we think very deeply about developer productivity as a core priority. GitHub acts as that really starting point for any developer. Now there are 35+ million developers, open source developers who start. Their home is GitHub. That's where they collaborate. That's where their source code is. That's where they do continuous integration. In fact, your IP gets created around the GitHub workflows. So we care deeply about making sure GitHub, as well as Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, which is the #1 and #2 tools. There was a recent survey done where the 2 code editors and the IDEs were Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio itself. So therefore, the combination of GitHub and Visual Studio creates that productivity gain for any one of your developers, and we think a lot about it. And then especially coupled with Azure DevOps, the ability to continuously integrate and continuously deploy your IP to all of that Azure infrastructure or any other cloud. In fact, one of the things I should mention is when we think about GitHub or our tooling, We're trying to be language agnostic. We're also trying to be cloud agnostic. So in other words, we assume you're going to use multiple clouds. We assume you're going to write in multiple languages, use multiple frameworks. But we want you to have the most productive experience doing so. So that's really the goal we have with both GitHub and Visual Studio as well as Azure DevOps. The one thing I wanted to mention is this new tool that we put in called Azure PlayFab. It came out of our Xbox world. Interestingly enough, if you're a game developer, you know this very well, that your real work starts the day after you've launched your game. And you want to operate the game as an economy itself with the best analytics. So this notion of DevOps to deploy or continuously integrate and continuously deploy is one aspect. The other aspect is to continuously monitor, get analytics from your application, and then operate. And that's something that we describe as live ops, which PlayFab incorporates. So this combination of GitHub, Visual Studio, Azure DevOps, and Azure PlayFab, we think is going to be the most foundational pieces for building your own IP. Now, of course, it's not just the tools. You need a very robust data layer. We are making significant investments in building out that robust data layer for all of your transactional needs. We realize that the variety, the volume, the velocity of data, whether it's relational data or non-relational data, graph databases, document databases, especially with something like Cosmos DB, we have a leading multi-region, multi-model database. And so we are very, very thrilled to sort of have all of this infrastructure available for you to build your applications. And not just on the transactional side, but even on the analytics side. The pipeline from Azure Data Factory to Data Explorer to Databricks to Power BI visualizations, and then the ability to be able to have the data lake and the AI capabilities. So that entire workflow is, again, something that we have put a lot of effort to make sure that you get the best bootstrap on the data side. Now, if you have infrastructure, you have tools, you have data, the quintessential characteristic of any application being built in 2019 or beyond will be AI. And that's where we are investing to democratize AI, because the AI for us is not about some capability we have. We have been doing research in fundamental breakthroughs in AI since the very beginning of Microsoft. In fact, it was when we started in 1995 is when we started Microsoft Research. And in the last 3-4 years, the breakthroughs we have in terms of achieving these human parity milestones, whether it's in object recognition or speech recognition or machine reading and comprehension. In fact, just this year around conversational Q&A have been amazing. It's great to see the breakthroughs because of compute power, availability of data, as well as algorithmic breakthroughs. But to us, celebrating these as just research milestones is just not as interesting as it is to sort of translate this into a set of infrastructure, right? The best FPGA or for inference, best GPU capability, all of the infrastructure that you need, the best frameworks for you to be able to, Azure ML and the tooling around it. In fact, we now have a special branch of DevOps for machine learning ops, because one of the most important things we need to do around AI is to make the engineering around AI robust enough, like we have for the rest of our code and data. So how do we do that for all of what we do with AI? So that's the investment we are making, and it's great to see, in fact, lots of different customers. In fact, I was pleased to see us making progress right here in Sweden. One of the use cases of some of the AI capabilities was Spotify. Spotify has a very cool new podcast tool that they have called Soundtrap, and what it does is allows anybody to build, do their own podcast. And they're using our speech recognition, in fact, specifically speech to text capability. But the most interesting feature they added was for anyone to modify their podcast, all they needed to do is to go in and edit the transcript, and it'll automatically edit the podcast. So think about how you could use AI to improve the overall productivity. And in fact, they're also taking this particular tool chain and integrating it with Microsoft 365 so that they can reach the education market, right? So students can use OneNote and Soundtrap to be able to do their podcasts. In fact, even doing fantastic integration around the identity side so that people can collaborate across the school system. So very cool to see some of the innovation from Spotify. We also have an example here of Antisemex, which is really all around pest control. And for them, they needed to build essentially an IoT plus AI system. They have over 100,000 IoT devices out there in the field all over Europe. They needed to be able to get the real-time data back and to be able to not only use it for monitoring, but to be able to then reason over that data and create the machine learning that allows them to continuously improve the efficacy of what their entire business is. So it's great to see, again, another example of that real-time feedback loop between the cloud and the edge, data and AI in the real world. So that's a bit of what's happening in the bottom-most layer of infrastructure all the way to AI. I want to sort of move to the next layer, which is all around business process. To us, in fact, one of the most exciting things that's happening is how the need for applications is expanding, right? If you think about what is happening is everything that can be digitized is being digitized. That means you have more workflow. Now, the question really is, how can the total enterprise come together? It's not about creating every new application as a new silo, but the ability to take your customer operations, your employee operations, your core operations, all, and bring the data across all of this together. In fact, one of the ways I describe an AI-first company is a company that doesn't just optimize the data and the AI output of one system, but it's able to take data from one system and, in fact, optimize the outcome of another system. That's really the digital feedback loop that every enterprise and every ecosystem is trying to achieve. And the business process layer that we're building out for that is Dynamics and Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. And it's really exciting to see. This is an area that I worked on for many years past, and finally we have cracked that hard computer science problem of how do you allow for the continuous customization of business processes while at the same time ensuring the agility and the upgradability, because you really do not want to create new silos. So it's a modern, modular system that is extensible. And that's what we have built in this business process layer, and that's going to be critical across every business. Now, a couple of good examples. In fact, H&M has been using Dynamics to drive their new brands, to really have the agility around both some of the new brands that they have, as well as the first-line work. In fact, I think Arti was here just before me, talking a lot about what they're doing across AI and business process and across their supply chain, as well as their frontline work. They also, for example, built this beautiful AI mirror in their flagship store in New York. So a lot of end-to-end innovation that is happening, that H&M is driving on top of this, platform capability. Now, one of the other aspects of business process that I'm very excited about is the coming together of what is today analog and physical and digital with mixed reality. It's pretty interesting to me. When we first introduced HoloLens, we had not realized that HoloLens was going to be a real breakthrough in commercial applications. In particular, it was going to transform how people think about architecture and construction, industrial design, how people think about remote assistance, remote surgery, how people think about training. These were all of the use cases that have been absolutely transformative. And in fact, we now have built HoloLens 2 to take all that feedback with twice the field of view, much more comfort, but lots of new applications. In fact, Dynamics 365 ships with out-of-the-box applications for training, remote assistance, layout, and it's exciting to see all this come together to truly transform the landscape of business process with mixed reality. So to give you a flavor for what's happening with HoloLens, I just wanted to roll the video. It's fantastic to see how HoloLens is really changing all of these application categories that we've always had, but have never really been able to bridge that last gap between what is virtual and what is really physical and real. And the ability to use this new medium is fantastic. And in fact, one of the case studies I sort of learned coming in was the reconstruction of an entire city. Kirunastad, which is a city, I guess, which is the northernmost city in Sweden with 18,000 residents, needs to move. And it is great to see how the city planners are using HoloLens as a way to really design the move, but are able to, in fact, really get a much better sense of all of the data they already have about their topography, and to be able to visualize it and do the precision planning. That's the type of business process implementation that we imagine happening between a lot of the workflow applications as well as the visualization capabilities of HoloLens. And so that's a little bit on the business process layer. I want to sort of talk about Microsoft 365 as that next logical thing that we are building around users and their productivity and communication needs. We have a long heritage here. Obviously, we've built Windows and Office, but we have done a fundamental shift where instead of starting from just the device, we think about putting the user at the center and then designing around the user their relationships with other users and people inside the organization and outside the organization, their schedules, their work artifacts, their projects, and really thinking about these connected experiences that span devices. And in fact, even the user interface that spans senses. You may want to start on one device with speech. You may move to another device and do keyboard and mouse and ink. The ability for you to be able to transcend any given device and have that true multi-device, multi-sense experience is what we're really trying to build with Microsoft 365. Now, we have, in fact, multiple customers who are using Microsoft 365 locally. We have a municipality that's chosen to use Microsoft 365 primarily for its ability to collaborate in the cloud, but also security, which is huge. One of the biggest challenges is how do you ensure cybersecurity is paramount for anyone moving to the cloud. And so, in fact, if anything, it is a much more secure environment. And when cyber attacks are not just about the big companies, it's about sort of the small business attacks. If you look at the precision with which the attack vectors are being targeted today, it is really the medium-sized businesses, public sector institutions that get most impacted, and the move to the cloud and some of the tooling and some of the services of Microsoft 365 really help in that, ensuring cybersecurity. Also, Sandvik is using, and in fact, one of the products that we are very excited about is Teams. What Teams brings together is 4 capabilities. It brings together core messaging, meetings, collaboration, as well as business workflow, and has been transformative. In fact, one of the things that up to now, we have always seen a lot of what is considered our applications being used by knowledge workers. But Teams is being deployed to transform the workflow habits of first-line workers. So this is people who are a retail specialist at the front line, somebody who's on the shop floor or the factory floor. These are the folks who are using Teams and coordinating the workflow with the knowledge workers. And Sandvik is a great example of that, where they're able to use Teams across the enterprise to drive their productivity needs. So that's a real whirlwind tour of what's happening across the infrastructure layer, business process layer, as well as the core collaboration and communication layers, and how partners and customers are already innovating on top of it. But it would be, I would be remiss not to talk about trust. Because ultimately, it is going to be so important for us not to just build technology, but to really ensure that there is real trust in the technology that all of us build. That means when it comes to privacy, obviously there is regulation like GDPR we need to be compliant with. But more importantly, we have to build systems which deal with personal data and privacy as a human right. And that means it's an architectural design point. So that means everything that we do, but everything that we enable you to build, if you're building a banking application, a retail application, or a healthcare application, we need to ensure that that application is not only going to be GDPR compliant, but will also ensure that you will have the capability to continuously treat personal data as a human right. Second is, of course, cybersecurity. And I already talked about it in the context of Microsoft 365. But one of the biggest things that we are investing in is the operational security posture that we then translate into capabilities such as security across Microsoft 365, whether it's Windows Defender or Office 365, advanced threat protection, any of those capabilities. But the most important thing is, how do we use that operational security posture to help protect the most vulnerable of populations, that is small businesses, public sector institutions, consumers. And so therefore, we're not only working on our own, but we're also collaborating broadly across the industry to ensure that there is cybersecurity. In fact, we've even called for what we describe as the Digital Geneva Convention, because it's so important that we have global norms around how we come together to protect these populations that are most vulnerable. And of course, AI ethics is at the forefront. There's a lot of talk about AI innovation, AI breakthroughs. But the question is not just what we can do with computers, but what should we do with computers? And that's, I think, the question of our times. But it starts, though, with us as creators of AI having a set of design principles. You can even call them ethical principles, but I even think about these as engineering practices that ground ethical principles so that we can build the AI world that we all want to live in. Take, for example, any language model that you incorporate in your application. How do we ensure that the language models that you put into your applications don't have some of the biases that are there in our society? That means we need to have software engineering tools that can take out those word embeddings and de-bias those models. So that's the type of investment, that's the type of push we as a tech community collectively will need to have to set the standards. It's not just about building AI, but to ensure that the AI we build has that grounding in the ethics and principles that we all want in the systems that we build. I want to close, though, by talking about, I think, what drives us at Microsoft, but quite frankly, all of us who are using technology to have impact in the world. Because ultimately, the communities we operate in, the communities we live in, are being shaped by technology. And that's what gives us the energy, the motivation to do our very best work. And when you think about that, one of the things that I always look at is saying, okay, how is our participation, our partnerships with all of you in every community, in this case in Sweden, changing the productivity of Swedish small businesses? How is it helping public sector institutions in Sweden get more efficient? How is it helping large multinationals out of Sweden get globally more competitive? That's really what it's all about. But we also think about educational outcomes and health outcomes. And when you think about health, any GDP anywhere in the world is driven by their ability to make health more affordable and better in terms of outcomes for people. And I was sort of really thrilled to see a startup here called Koala Life build out this new monitoring system for cardiac care patients. If you think about cardiac care, that's one of the big drivers of cost in the healthcare systems all around the world, in Europe and in Sweden. In fact, in Sweden, there's 1.5 million patients who have cardiac issues. And so the ability to change that frontier, the curve of how you monitor and ensure that the right type of care is being provided. This is one startup out of Sweden who is able to make such a difference because of that malleable quality of software. That's the impact, that's the opportunity that all of us have in this next wave of digitization. And it's really exciting to see. So I just wanted to be able to share that last story with you, because to us, it all comes down to our mission of empowering everyone in Sweden to be able to have that tech intensity to not only reshape the community here, but also the world. Thank you all so very, very much. Thank you. Thank you.
How do we feed the world without wrecking the planet?
I need to make it possible because it's so important.
The first time I actually could read that book, I was proud of myself.
You can look at the world and see the problems, or you can see opportunity.
Innovation is a journey. And every step we take together.
Using AI, we can reduce waste and produce more food.
What we do is about more than technology.
When it's reading, I see spaces between the words.
It's about the people who use it.
No matter how your body is, everyone can play.
It's about the world we share and the future we build.
With AI, we are able to reproduce historical places, so you can experience history.
It's a big responsibility, but it's an even bigger opportunity. That is why we empower every person in the organization to achieve more.
These are real solutions. We're solving problems we didn't even know we had.
Because when we empower each of us, we empower all of us.
It's time to wrap up. Thank you, Satya Nadella, for this presentation. So I told you this morning it was going to be a special one, right? So I'd like to ask you, Eva-Mia, what do you say? Is pivotal change happening now?
Yes, pivotal change is definitely happening now, and it starts with us here in this room and you on the streaming link. Thank you so much for spending the time with us this morning. We wish you a nice day and have a lovely summer.
Now, Andreas, take it away. Thank you so much.